The first episode, Ultimate Sacrifice, begins with people on the bus on a rainy day. Then, as the red light flashes on the train, it shows Molly Hartman with blood in her hands. Then, Thomas Hatlestad is on the phone, delivering the news that he's on his way to his interview for the job at Hartman Finance. 5 years ago, Molly, together with his husband, Leon, and daughter, Kaja, moved to a new home in the countryside to start a new life. Despite Leon and Kaja loving their new home, Molly doesn't like it since she's a city girl and doesn't know how she can live in the country and worries that their friends will never go there to visit them. Leon then argues with her because it's she who's at fault, why they lost their money from maximizing loans with interest. Then, one of their neighbors, Mr. Kloppen, with his wife holding a cat, interrupts their small fight. He says they've been curious about who's finally moving in the house because no one's lived there for 15 years. He then offers help, insisting he can call their neighbors tomorrow at noon to come over and help them settle in. Then, they will have a barbecue. Later, the Hartmans go inside the house, and while Leon and Kaja are enjoying their new home, Molly notices that Mr. and Mrs. Kloppen are still outside. She tells her family that they're strange and that she finds them a little too friendly, but they say that people out there are more social. She also claims that the way they approached Bolt, their dog, is intense despite his wife having a cat. However, Leon says that he likes dogs. Later that day, Kaja convinces Molly to have a walk with her and Leon, but Molly, who's crying, decides to be left alone. She then takes her time to roam around the house, trying to adjust, but when she goes to the basement to open the light, she, unfortunately, touches a rat. The next day, Kaja asks Leon if many people are coming, to which Leon says they can only be a few because it's a regular workday. Then, they're shocked to see a bunch of people with their animals approaching their gate. Their neighbors then help with the house and proceed to the barbecue afterward. While the rest are having fun at the barbecue, Molly is on one side eating alone and observing everyone when Mrs. Kloppen and one of their neighbors approach her. Mrs. Kloppen asks her what she's doing there all by herself, and she replies that, unlike Leon, she needs time to adjust. Mrs. Kloppen then tells her that if she has questions about country life, she can ask. Molly then asks what's with them bringing animals everywhere, and then they say that it's just the way it is there, and that they will never know when they will be useful. Later that night, Leon converses with Molly, saying they all seem friendly, but she says that it's strange because so many people showed up on a Monday and wonders if any of them have work. Leon says they might have flexible jobs, but still. She finds it weird that they also smile all the time and sit there petting their animals. Then, she apologizes and says she's trying to like it there, but doesn't know if she can do that. The following day, Molly goes out for a jog and sees Mrs. Kloppen with the woman again, so she follows them through the woods. She then sees them putting a cat in the stone and stabbing it. Because of her shock, she suddenly steps on a twig, causing them to see her. She then asks what they're doing then, and the woman tells Mrs. Kloppen that this is bad, but Mrs. Kloppen says that Molly now lives there and that she'll find out about it sooner or later. Later, they invite Molly for wine in their yard, and Mrs. Kloppen tells her that she needs to promise that she'll never tell anyone about what she's about to learn. After she promises, they say that Horgen was built long ago with the remains of a very ancient Viking village. The stone she saw was their sacrificial stone, where they sacrificed animals on it and occasionally humans for good luck. They continue to tell about Johan, the one with the Asian wife who lives up the road. They say that his dog got cancer, and he took the dog to the woods and shot it on the sacrificial stone. The next day, he won $2.1 million in the lotto. So the whole town learned about it, and now they sacrifice animals when they need luck. Molly clarifies that if they kill animals, they win money. Mrs. Kloppen then replies that she must be careful because when she gets greedy and lose control, the stone will change her. Later, she returns to her house and thinks of the rat she saw in the basement. She then catches it and kills it on the stone. After that, she goes to a grocery store to buy a scratcher and tells the cashier that she knows about the stone. Before the cashier hands her the scratcher, she reminds her to be careful. Then, Molly proceeds with the scratcher thinking she'll win big. Unfortunately, she only wins 50 kroner. With disappointment, she goes to Mrs. Kloppen again and tells her about it, and then they ask her what animal she killed, to which she replies the rat she caught in their basement. They then laugh and tell her that the reward equals the sacrifice and that she needs to bond with the animal. When she returns home, she sees Bolt, so she takes him for a walk to the stone and eventually kills him. After killing him, she returns to the convenience store and buys a lottery ticket. Later that night, Katja starts worrying because Bolt is missing, but Leon says it'll be okay because Bolt always returns. She then asks Molly to help them look for Bolt, but Molly says she's nauseous. A few minutes later, she watches the draw for the lottery and she's so happy to see 5 of her numbers. Unfortunately, the rest of her numbers didn't show up, so she immediately went to Mrs. Kloppen again, ranting that they told her that she would win more if she had a bond with the animal, so she killed their family dog but only won 3,000 kroner. Mrs. Kloppen then asks if she loves the dog because the more they love them, the more money they will win. Back in their house, Katja and Leon arrive while Molly sits on their couch nervously. Leon notices her uneasiness, so he asks her what's wrong. Then she confesses that she did something horrible and asks him to come with her to see Bolt, who's dead. They go to the woods, and when Leon sees Bolt, she grabs a knife while trying to explain the sacrificial stone. Then, she confesses that she killed their dog and won the lotto, which causes Leon to get mad and call her crazy. She then tells him she loves him and pushes him to the stone, knocking out Leon, so she attempts to stab him. At present, Thomas is inside the building and an employee escorts him to the boss. On their way, he asks what he should ask her about, to which the employee says he could ask her about how she made her first million, but their boss wouldn't tell. Back in the past, with Molly attempted to kill Leon, she was about to stab him when Katja arrived and stopped her. They then fought with Molly, choking her, but she grabbed a stone and smacked it on Molly's head, who landed on the sacrificial stone and died. Not long after, Leon regained consciousness and saw Molly dead. Back in the present, the boss is Katja, with a cat on her lap. The episode ends with Thomas inquiring about her life's pain that her mother went insane when she was young. Then her father disappeared a year later without a trace. The second episode, entitled 3 Sick Brothers, begins with the same bus, but this time it focuses on Eric Hagfors with blood pouring down behind his ear. Eric, with his mother, is in his apartment, where he'll stay after being locked up in a psychiatric hospital. Her mom then reminds her of his medicines and tells him that she's decided to sell the cabin. Then, her mother leaves for work. Moments later, he opens a photo album and looks at a picture of his father and 2 brothers in the cabin. As his tears start to pour, he hears his doorbell, so he puts the photo in his pocket, and when he opens it, he sees his 2 brothers, Jorg and Otto, whom he didn't see for 3 years. They go inside the apartment and check on it when George invites him to go outside for a few beers. However, Eric says that the doctors want him to avoid any situation that might trigger or stress him out, such as loud noises or sudden movements. Then, Otto tries to convince him to get a tiny amount of beer. Then, George suggests they go to their dad's cabin and raid his liquor cabinet. Eventually, he agrees. On their way to the cabin, Otto asks Eric if he had any female acquaintance while he was in the psychiatric ward, and he laughs it out. Moments later, they stop at a gasoline station to grab some snacks when he bumps into a balloon standee. Then, he goes inside the convenience store, comes across a stand of glasses, and sees himself in the mirror, which shocks him. Later, he goes to the cashier to pay, and the cashier inquires if he's having a party. But he says that he and his brothers are going to their dad's cabin. When he returns to the car and puts the snacks in the trunk, he hears Otto and George chuckling. He then asks them what's up with them, and a woman named Monica surprises her. Otto then says they found her in the streets and asked if she wanted to party with them. Then Monica said yes. While on their way, Monica tells more about herself, that she's studying psychology, is single, and wants to have fun. Moments later, they arrive at their dad's cabin, and he tells Monica that he feels weird because none of them has been there for many years. Monica then asks why. Since it's a nice place, he says that they used to come up all the time as kids back when their dad was still alive. Then, George approaches them with drinks and says cheers to Ronnie Hagfors, their dad, that he may rot in hell. Monica barges in and says that it looks like they had a rough relationship with their dad, and then Otto comes with his dad's old knife sharpener. Later, they continue drinking their beers when one music plays on their cassette, and Otto starts dancing wildly. Monica then jokes that she doesn't want to sound rude, but inquires if Otto was already diagnosed, causing Otto to stop the music and madly talk to her. He continues to say that if she's implying he's crazy, she's wrong and points out Eric. Monica is confused. so Eric explains his situation with the psychiatric hospital. Then, Monica, who feels awkward and uncomfortable, goes to the restroom. Later, while Eric is playing the piano, Monica comes to him and tells him that soon she'll be a trained psychologist and will be above average at reading people. She claims that if she had felt the tiniest bit unsafe with him, then she would have run far away by now. She then asks him to tell her about their father, so he pulls the photo in his pocket and says he's a son of a bitch, but he refuses to answer when she asks him how his father died. On the other hand, Eric's mom returns to the apartment and finds that he's not home. She sees the photo album on the table, so she immediately drives to the cabin. With Eric and Monica, Monica asks her if her hospitalization has anything to do with his father's death. However, before he answers, George cuts in, saying that many people wanted their father dead, but Eric had the guts to do something about it. Eric then admits it, causing Monica laughs and says that she doesn't believe it because he's not the type to do that. However, George asks her why Eric would confess to a murder he didn't commit. On the other hand, Eric tries to stop him, but he asks her who she thinks killed their father if Eric didn't. Monica then stood up and said that she remembered that she had an appointment in town and that Eric could take her down the main road. George opposes because the party's just started, but Eric says that the party's over. As they're about to leave, Otto tells Eric that the after party starts if the party's over. George then smacks him down while Otto ties Monica to a chair. Eric's mom then calls. However, Otto grabs the phone and breaks it, so he fights him, but knocks out when George smashes a bottle in his head. George then talks to Monica, asking her who killed their father, as Eric only confessed to covering up for someone else. On the other hand, when Eric's mother stops to get gas, she comes across the cashier woman and inquires if she's seen her son. The woman then says he was there a couple of hours ago, buying a lot of snacks and saying he's going to a cabin with his brothers. Eric's mother immediately puts down the gas pump and drives to the cabin. Meanwhile, Eric wakes up and tells his brothers to set her free, but they disagree because she'll report them to the police. He then asks Otto to give him the knife, which he does, but when he's about to cut her loose, George takes it and tells him that he calls the shots. He continues to tell Eric that they have to deal with the situation, so he instructs Otto to stab her on the left side where the heart is. Moments later, Eric's mother arrives at the cabin and sees Eric with a lot of blood. She then asks him what he has done, to which he says, it was Otto and George. However, her mother says that they don't exist, but he insists that they killed Monica, so her mother goes inside to check. She then sees that the Monica he's talking about is the balloon he bumped in the gasoline station. He then says that they killed her just like how they killed his dad. But her mother says that his father isn't dead, that nobody killed his father. He just abandoned them. Then, it was revealed that it was just all his hallucinations and that it was just him and his father in the photo. The episode ends with his mother returning the balloon, and he sees Otto and George again setting the gasoline station on fire. Episode 3. Bad Writer begins on the bus with the usual array of people, focusing on a woman, Olivia, typing on her laptop with blood over the keyboard. Olivia is with her boyfriend Marcus in bed when Marcus's mom texts him inviting them over. Olivia then says that she thinks his mother doesn't like her, but Marcus says that his mom loves her and that everybody loves her because she's the most beautiful girl in the world. Then, they get intimate in bed. Later, Olivia asks for her bag and Sarah gives it to her. Then, she tells Isabel that she needs her lunch. Lastly, she says she'd love an apple and asks Cynthia if she can have the one she's about to bite. When she's about to leave, Marcus asks her where she's going and she replies to a writing class. Moments after, she arrives at a writing class riding her Porsche. Then, a man named Alex approaches her and compliments her car. During the class, Annalise, the lecturer, asks about the worst experience of her life, and she answers that when she was 12, her pony died, but her parents gave her a new one. And Elise then advises them on how to write and what to do with the characters in their stories. After the class, she comes to Alex and bids goodbye when he notices the papers he's holding. He then says it's an amateur story he wrote. Later, Olivia returns home and overhears her roommates talking about her, calling her spoiled and rude. Then she hears them planning to invite her to a picnic and kill her in the woods. She's on her way to leave when they notice her and acts as if she didn't hear them. Later, Isabel invites her to a picnic outside the city at the weekend. She starts to feel paranoid when she sees Sarah picking up a knife. She then throws the boiling water in the kettle on them before running out of the house when she drops her car keys. Marcus is there to pick them up and grab her, causing her to be scared and stab him in the face with her keys. After that, she runs off and waves to a car for help. As soon as she gets inside, she says she stabbed her boyfriend because they're trying to kill her. She then notices that the driver is Alex, telling her he was driving by and offering her to go to the police. While she waits in the station, she sees Sarah, Isabel, and Cynthia arriving with a knife, causing her to run away and fall. She drops her bag, making the papers scattered on the floor. And as she reads what's in the papers, she sees the three girls' conversation and Alex in the car, typing on his laptop. She then recalls what Annalise talked about during class and realizes that Alex writes what's happening to her. So she goes to a bench and starts writing about him. As she sees that what she's writing about him is becoming true, she decides to turn his laptop into a monster that bites his finger off. Then, she confronts him when she realizes that she's a character that he made up. However, Alex explains that he started it as a fantasy but was planning to end it well. Later, she suggests going to a sushi bar to write the story from the beginning again. Alex then explains that his wife is the lecturer and he wants to learn something, and that's why he's attending the class. Suddenly, she notices that one of the samurai swords on display is missing and asks Alex if he wrote about it. He then says no and thinks someone must also be writing about them. As she turns around, she finds Marcus with the sword and kills Alex. And then he looks at his mother, who turns out to be the lecturer, and tells him to kill Olivia. The episode ends with the real Annalise revealing that she has written the whole story while her husband looks after the barbecue. Then, their son Marcus arrives with the real Olivia, who hugs Annalise but stabs her with the barbecue fork, leaving everyone shocked, but she insists that she can delete it. So she goes to her computer and frantically tries to delete what she just wrote. Unfortunately, she can't delete it. Episode 4, entitled Lab Rats, begins with the same bus focusing on 5 people dressed only in their undergarments, sitting together with rats walking around them. Edmund, the CEO of a big pharmaceutical company, is on a roof with 5 other people to celebrate how hard they worked for years to make an antidepressant that will change the industry. He then gives a speech about this success and thanks his lab technician, Philip and Beatty, his 2 secretaries, Oda and Margrethe, and his wife, Iceland. After that, they proceed to their celebratory dinner, where Edmund gets a little familiar with Oda, which certainly doesn't sit well with his wife. Then, he goes to toast Abdi again, making Philip seem a little jealous. Later, Margrethe asks if they can look at the prototype, so Edmund heads to his office and opens his safe to find out that it's missing. He immediately speaks to his security guard, Bill, asking who's been there, to which Bill says that no one has been there except for his guest. They immediately go to the dinner and conclude that one of his guests must have taken it. He then confronts them and gets his security guard to search them individually, leaving them in disbelief that he'll do this to them. Even though they all claim that there's no way they can do it, he still forces Bill to search them. After frisking each of them and not finding anything, he forces them to undress. When they refuse to do so, Bill pulls a gun out, leaving the guests no choice. Philip is the first one to undress. When it's Margrethe's turn, she's crying in humiliation and keeps convincing him that she'll never do that to him. However, Edmund tells her that she shouldn't be afraid of anything if she's not hiding anything. Iceland then tries to stop him, but in the end, Edmund also tells her to undress, telling her he has no choice but to do it, as he doesn't trust anyone in the room. After undressing, they still didn't find anything, so Edmund thought of another solution. He asked them to go to the lab and get inside the box. He then locks them inside and tells them to escape, and they can press the combination on the lock, which is the same as his safe, revealing who the culprit is. After he leaves, Iceland tries to unlock it, but she's unfortunate to do so. Later, as paranoia quickly settles in, the group starts to suspect each other. First, Iceland, as she believes Oda is sleeping with Edmund, then Philip accuses Beatty, which ends in a fistfight, knocking out Philip. They then discuss Edmund and his methods, which is how greedy and shady he is when he scammed some of his employees in the past, causing some to take their lives. Afterward, they turn their attention to Iceland, who they think married Edmund for his money. On the other hand, Edmund is watching and hearing them from the CTV when Bill comes from searching through the area and finds nothing. He then tells him that it's impossible because all doors and windows are closed, so there's nowhere they can hide it. However, Bill thinks the culprit might have flushed it in the toilet. He then asks Bill if he made a thorough background check on each of them before hiring them. Bill says yes, but Edmund orders him to do it again. A few moments later, Bill notices something interesting in the surveillance footage and immediately shows it to Edmund. Afterward, they return to the laboratory and inform everyone there that they must confess or all of them will die together. He then gives Bill the command to turn on the gas, but Bill responds that they can't do that, so he turns the gas on himself. Before he leaves, he warns them that they will die if they don't confess in the next 5 minutes. As they feel the gas inside, they all start to panic, and Iceland suggests waking up Abby for he might be the culprit. Meanwhile, Oda tries a clever way out. He hands 5 pieces of paper, each of which will write an 8-digit code so they can all get out without revealing the culprit. After hearing it, Edmund becomes angrier, causing him to turn the gas up, leading Oda to rush to the lock and type the combination. They then successfully get out, and Edmund comes to them. Later, Edmund reveals that Oda is the daughter of one of the employees who killed himself, and she's seeking revenge. Then, he escorts her out of the building and they bid their goodbyes. He explains that he didn't kill anyone, his father killed himself, but Oda insists it's because he tricked him. Before she leaves, she blackmails him and tells him to forget the evening or she'll have to tell his wife about their affair, which Iceland will surely not forgive. When they part ways, he's about to get inside the building when he notices his pocket square. He then realizes that when he was checking Oda, she put the prototype inside, and then, when she asked for a last hug before they parted ways, she took it back. So, he chases her and tells her she's not wiser than him, causing her to hand in the prototype. After retrieving the prototype, Edmund returns to Iceland in the lab. She greets him with a gun and forces him into the glass room. Later, the other 4 people arrive, and Margaret turns the gas on despite him begging his wife to let him go. She then tells him that the combination is her birthday, and if he loves her, he should be out of there in no time. Unfortunately, he doesn't remember it. The episode ends with Edmund collapsing on the ground as foam comes out of his mouth due to the gas leaking inside the glass box, and he eventually dies.